To get started, we would like to give the alums a chance to introduce themselves and to reflect on their time being an OP student. So can we please start with Caleb and move to the end with Marquis? No pressure.
Yeah, the pressure. Good evening, everyone. My name is Caleb Williamson. I am from Rockaway Beach, Queens, but currently live in Washington, D.C., where I've lived for the past 3.5 years. Let's see, reflections on my time as an OP student. I will say this. I want to start off by saying that the what I know as ACE, which was the Success Center, man, that thing is nice now. Y'all have it good. Y'all have it really good. I joked earlier today and said that I used to see it like a little prison. Like you had like a desk in the front where somebody would be working, but it felt like you really couldn't talk. Like you were supposed to be on the computer the entire time. CO. Yeah, the warden's desk. But that thing is that room is beautiful, and the community that it fosters. I was actually talking to this table right up front first about my time as an OP student and some things I took away from it that helped me currently in my career and I'll take with me moving forward through life. And I think for me, the best takeaway I got as an OP student was a sense of community. It wasn't a sense of community in that I was forced to get along with everybody. I was forced to, put on a mask in order to fit in. I think the opportunity program provided an opportunity for me. And for me, it was actually 10 years ago, like it was a decade ago. When I was an actual OP like freshman on campus first semester. And for me, what it provided when I say community is that I came from an environment where I was normally one of a few. Outside of family, I was like one of the few people that looked like me, few people that had parents that looked like me, or anything like that. And so I was pretty good at this notion of like code switching, which is, you make sure that, for lack of a better term, like you put on a mask and you make sure that you fit within any environment that you're in. And when I came to the opportunities program, like you can try to wear a mask all you want, but those weeks when you're all in the same dorm and all together and learning stories about each other and sharing who you are and even taking on that journey of that own self-discovery by getting out of your comfort zone, you innately have to show your true self. And coming to an environment where you can recognize that your truest form of yourself was acceptable and that you can build a group of people that shared some of the similar values or the exact same values as you, people that were equally as driven to succeed.
Hi guys, I'm Toni Bullock. I am originally from Brooklyn, New York. I lived in Los Angeles for over 15 years, recently relocated back to New York City. So I feel like I have my own Sweet Home Alabama moment. And what was the other question, OP? Mm-hmm. I feel like it's very similar to what you were saying. It provided community for me. Coming from New York City, which I met a lot of people who have here, it's one of those things. I remember I don't know where you guys stay for the summer. I remember we stayed in Eels, and it was one of those, coming from the city, it was the first time sleeping in silence. And I remember looking at my roommate and I'm like, "Are you awake?" And she's like, "Yeah." It's like, okay. And then an hour later, "What about now?" She's like, "Yeah." And I'm like, because she was from New York City as well. And it was just such a big transition coming from the city to a campus. I chose Hamilton partly because of what it looked like. I could have gone to NYU, but I didn't want to stay at home. I love the change here and my parents loved the trees. I didn't understand the thing. Now I get it. I'm like, oh, it's so pretty, the colors. But it's really like, it's kind of what you said, it's a sense of community, of understanding you're coming in this transition wherever you come from. I met a person from Russia, Ethiopia, and the Bronx, and it's like, you are here for a reason, and we do stand out, and I understand that we do. But you have to understand that as much as you come into Hamilton for a reason, Hamilton needs you as well. And it's like you're bringing something to the table that other people don't have. So don't feel like you're singled out, because everyone here is scared, and it's okay to be scared. And don't feel like you have to rush into something, because it's cliche to say these are the best times of your life, maybe, But I enjoyed my time here, and I feel like you should take advantage of it and try new things. Try something that you've never done before, and I tried a couple of things, which we'll probably talk about later, that Ms. Breland yelled at me about. It was just basically taking too many courses at once. But it's one of those things of taking advantage of everything, and also understanding that your roommate, your friends, or whoever is someone you can lean on during those times in the summer here, and then you have that friend throughout the next 4 years. And that person, whether you divide and conquer and do different major things, you also have this shared community that other people on this campus don't have. And it's okay to go over there in the room and cry and say, hey, this happened to me today, or share a wonderful thing that happened to you today. I feel like one of my best friendships and relationships came from here and Sister Girl and that community. And excuse me, all phones off, please, thank you. And it's really about building that, because it also helps you prepare you for the real world when you leave here. Because everything you're experiencing here, which I understand when talking to some tables, is going to be out there in the real world 10 times over. So it's okay to make the mistakes here. And I feel like OP gave me the opportunity to go to Ms. Breland and Ms. Davis to be like, I want to try this, but I'm scared. And they'd be like, well, girl, what are you worried about? And then I got to a point where I was taking too many steps. And Ms. Breland was like, okay, you took 5 steps, Goo. I need you to take 1 step at a time. And it's true. Like, really just take a breath. There's no rush. Talk with your friend. Lean on your person. And then it'll be fine. Trust me, these 4 years will go by so quickly. And you'll be like, wait, I kind of want to come back. I think that answers your question.
Yes, that does. Thank you.
I'm Marquis. I'm from Utica, New York, not far away from here, but now living in Brooklyn. I'm class of 2018. So what's that, 5 years ago? Yeah, okay. Yeah, it's been a little bit of time. Impact of OP during my time here. I mean, there's a lot to say. I don't want to be too repetitive, but definitely want to double down on everything that has been said. I think a big thing for me is when Hamilton got challenging, and it did get challenging, I had a lot of life events happening while I was here. There are times where I was also doing too much on campus. There are times where I got a little bit too loud because I was a student activist and wanted things to change. And the Opportunities Programs was a space in which, like this physical office, I can go and, like be checked, in like a polite, respectful, Marquis, you gotta chill way, or be supported. In very tangible ways, like resources, but also like the personal support that I got in the Opportunities Programs office when I was dealing with challenges. Because Hamilton was great for me, I got a lot out of it, but there were challenges, and I had the Opportunities Programs to help me navigate those. So I definitely want to encourage folks to take advantage of the people who are in your corner, and in your corner not only for the time that you're here, but also afterward. I just had an event 2 weeks ago in which Ms. Breland gave the introduction to me to come speak on stage. Opportunities Programs lives with you. People are here to support you as you go through Hamilton, but also after Hamilton. I just met with Franklin after I returned from graduate school in the UK, and he was just giving me, as he's done since I was a freshman, advice on the next couple steps in my life. Those things are really important, were important while I was a student here, and continue to be important. So I want to encourage you to see the folks in the Opportunities Programs office as a part of your support structure and to use them as such.
Thank you so much, everyone. So now we're going to switch up from reminiscing about your OP time to talking a little bit more about your current position. So the next question is, how did you get started working for your current position? And we could go on the same order, please.
Sure. So this is, I think I like this question. I won't make it as long-winded as the actual journey has been. But so currently I serve as State Public Policy Counsel for ACT, the App Association. And the App Association is a technology trade association, trade group advocacy organization that represents the voices of small and mid-sized tech companies and independent app developers. And our big focus is to make sure that when people think about technology, and most people, but also legislators, that they recognize that it's not just the largest tech companies in the world, but there are small businesses at in the truest form of innovation, the true backbones of innovation, who can and will be impacted by legislation that includes them or doesn't include them. They will always feel the brunt of it. And so, my desire to pursue a career in government affairs actually stemmed from law school, but I can weave Hamilton in there if that's helpful. I came to Hamilton thinking I was going to be a government major, an econ minor. I'll be very frank. I took an intro to econ course and got a C on the first exam, and I was like, I don't know if this is for me. I was like, man, I'm not gonna lie. I met with my advisor at the time, was Professor Klinkner. I met with Professor Franklin. I even met with Professor Wu in the econ department. And the question they kept asking was like, well, why? And I was like, I don't know. It just seemed like they fit, but it's not fitting right now. And long story short, I ended up becoming a philosophy major. I knew coming into Hamilton that I wanted to follow in my parents' footsteps. They're both attorneys. And so I knew that I wanted to go to law school. So in law school, I recognized when I was taking a constitutional law class, when I was reading about all these constitutional violations and how it impacted our community, my community, the Black community, and how these policies that were written, these lawyers only got active after it went through the entire legislative process. And I was like, where are these lawyers at the table actually crafting this to make sure that these unintended consequences or these poorly written laws that would be poorly applied, where were they at the table to make sure that this wasn't happening? And so for me, I recognized that there was an opportunity there to have a seat at the table earlier through government affairs, through advocacy. So when I graduated from law school, it was 2020 and COVID hit. I was supposed to go to a boutique law firm in New York to focus on elder and health law, which is something that I care so much about. And still to this day, I still care about it and still work pro bono on issues. But that boutique company got swallowed up by a larger firm. That firm then disbanded that practice. And I was sitting there like, dang, man, I don't even have a job lined up. This is crazy. I went from being like, all right, let's hurry up and finish this academic year so I can start my job to, dang, what do I do? And so there was an opportunity. There was a fellowship with the New York State Senate. And I applied and was blessed enough to have the opportunity to work there, but also to grace them with all the skill set that I've acquired over time. And I say that strategically because it's always a two-way street, as Toni mentioned earlier. They're just as blessed to have you as you are to have an opportunity. And so when I was there, I got to see how the sausage gets made, how laws become, or how ideas become laws, and what that process looks like. When I was going through that, I was doing constitutional analysis because I was a lawyer by training, or am a lawyer. And so I was just out here being extremely neutral on things. I was looking at it, saying, okay, yeah, this is constitutional, but, and they wouldn't listen to the but. They were like, okay, it's constitutional, let's go. I was like, no, but X, Y, Z. And they were like, okay, noted, but your role is to focus solely on constitutionality of it. And I was like, dang, that's only half the goal that I wanted to achieve. I wanted to also make sure that there are other aspects aside from just constitutionality in these laws that would impact people. And so then I said, okay, well, if I don't want to be neutral, what do I have to do? And they were like, oh, you might want to become a lobbyist or work in government affairs. And I was like, oh, you mean like the people I meet with every single day? They were like, yeah. I was like, you mean the people that get paid more than me? They were like, yep. And I was like, that's doable. So I went right to LinkedIn and shout out to so many folks at Hamilton who just also stress this one thing, and I'll say, keep your LinkedIn fresh, keep it ready. And so I typed in on LinkedIn, tech policy jobs, because I knew that technology was pandemic proof, policy was pandemic proof, and I didn't want that experience to happen with that boutique firm to happen again. Long story short, I just clicked on the company's webpage to look at it. I didn't even apply. I just looked at it. And, it notified the job poster, oh, so-and-so looked at this application or looked at this job posting. And the next day, I get a call out of nowhere. And, for some crazy reason, I picked up an unknown call. I just picked up the phone. And I was like, hello? They're like, hi, this is so-and-so from the App Association. we saw that you looked at the job posting. Are you interested? And I said, I think I am. I do have some questions. Long story short, within 2 weeks I had a job offer. And to this day, I'm like, they've never seen my resume. It literally just happened. They looked at my LinkedIn and that was apparently good enough. But so I found this through a journey of kind of like holding steadfast to the question of why. Why did I want what I wanted initially? What changed? And my why of having a pen in hand, seat at the table, drove my decision to work at the App Association, and it's driving my decision to stay there now. And as I've been there year after year, more opportunities to be a voice, not just for the small businesses, but also to be a voice within our organization to make sure that we are looking at things through a truly equitable lens and pushing our organization to get out of their comfort zone too. And so it's a long-winded, it wasn't as long as the 6 years to get to where I'm at, but it was a long-winded way of saying this is my path, this is my story. There's more on LinkedIn, so make sure to follow me.
So currently, I'm working for Wrigley Entertainment as a development executive, where I come up with show ideas, package them, and package means whether we attach a director or a person, like an actor, and sell them to the networks and studios. How did I get there? Well, I would say it started when I was 16. I went to WNYC Radio New York, NPR, and I went there for some event, and I was like, oh my God, this seems so cool. They had like Brooklyn Celebration. They were doing something in the city. And I was like, this seems so cool. So I just walked up to somebody and said, hey, what do you do? And they told me, I was like, I want to work with you. And they said, well, how old are you? I'm like, I'm 16. She's like, yeah, you can't work. You're not old enough. I convinced them to do their first internship. So that summer, I worked for them in the marketing department. From there, I worked 2 summers, and then I came to Hamilton, and I knew radio was cool, but I liked visuals. So I went to the Career Center, and that's where I met I started Googling like entertainment, who works in entertainment. The first person I saw was Sophia Fergosi, and she worked in HR at Time Inc. magazine. And I hit her up, and I was like, hey, so I want to work in magazines. And she's like, well, there's a Time Inc. Stars business program that you could apply to. So I applied to that, and that was my first internship. My first summer in Hamilton. I worked in the city, I worked at All You magazine and then In Style magazine. And I worked in editorial. So if you know magazines, it's either editorial or advertising, and they're very split, and one side's business, one side is the glamour side. I worked there for 2 years, loved it, but then I was like, I worked in the business side, I really want to see visuals, they never cross over. So I was like, how do I get over? Then I was like, okay, radio, magazines, and then what's the next avenue is TV. But by that time, I was pretty much unsure of how to get there. I was a psychology major, and I convinced my psychology professor, I was like, I'm going to do my dissertation on how psychology is used in advertising. And she was like, no, you're not. I'm like, yes, I am. And she's like, actually, you have a point. And I had to fight for it, and it worked, because it actually helps me to this day. I actually found my dissertation the other day, and I reread it. So my senior year, I remember going to Franklin, and I said, there was a Syracuse event here, grad school event, and Syracuse was there for Newhouse, and I was like, I want to go into television, and what do I do? Talked to Franklin introduced me to another professor there. I drove up there, and he said, don't come here, start working in industry. I was scared. I was a little scared, I'll be honest. To move and pack and go up to LA from New York City was another big transition. So I applied to Syracuse. I studied hard for that test. I forgot what it's called. And then I got in, and I went to Syracuse, and that pretty much, Syracuse was one of the things that said, you have to have, your last test has to be a job or internship. And my last job or internship was, the first job I had was Scrubs. It was season 9, I was a PA. How did I get there? May of that year, before graduation, I went up to LA for a week. But prior to that, I looked at all shows that I loved, and I looked at the credits, and I Googled their names, and I somehow just did deep research in finding their emails. And then I found one email from somebody at ABC. It was like, oh, Toni.Bullock at ABC. But the production coordinator is this name, so maybe let's make a guess. So-and-so at ABC. I emailed over 100 people. I would say about 20 people got back to me. I told them I'll be in LA for a week. can I have coffee with you? Didn't ask for a job, I just want to know what you do. And from there, I went to LA. I remember I stayed at a Comfort Inn with my boyfriend at the time, and we literally hit the pavement, went to every single meeting. I switched the outfit, probably switched the shirt underneath, and just kept meeting people and took them out for coffee. Within 2 weeks, I got a call from Jean Hester. I remember this day. And she's like, what are you doing? And I was like, oh, I'm in New York. And she's like, well, I thought you lived in LA, because I lied. And I was just like, oh, I'm in New York working on a show. She's like, well, can you be in LA in 2 weeks? Because there's a show, Scrubs, that's staffing. I said, yes. Packed everything up for 2 weeks and moved straight to LA with $500 in my pocket. And I literally crashed at a friend's house and stayed there and did an internship. Now, internships and PA positions don't pay you that much. So I literally had to hustle. And I worked at Express, I worked at Zara, and then I also did my internship at the same time, all to just make it in LA. From there, I started working. This is around 2009. This was another writer strike that happened, and Scrubs shut down. But I worked Scrubs and then Cougar Town's first season, and then I kind of fell into reality, where reality was booming. This is the time of Extreme Makeover Home Edition and America's Next Top Model, and Real World. And I really just started hustling and meeting people and talking to people and realizing that there's a lot of people that work in the industry that work on one show for like 10 years, but they don't know people in other shows. So if your show gets canceled, where do you go for your next job? So I learned the power of networking, of people in other realms and other genres to keep me going, to keep me with my next job. And when I didn't have a job, I still go back to Zara and Express to keep the money coming in, paying rent. And then from there, I started working. I remember some shows got canceled or on hiatus. My parents were like, are you coming back to New York? And I was like, no, I called my friend at CAA, which is an industry agency. And I said, hey, I need a full-time job. She helped me get a job with Discovery Studios working in development. And that's my first start in development and learning how shows are made. And I learned there underneath my mentor at the time. And from there, I bounced back and forth between production and development, which helps me to this day, that when I'm coming up with a show, I know if it's producible, I know the budget, I know you could come up with the craziest idea, but if you never worked in production, you don't know if it's actually something you can do. So you might be like, oh yeah, we're gonna jump from the sky and land on this pad and yada, 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 and it'll be $1 million budget, but then you don't realize how many insurances you need, how much security you need. And I feel like that world of me working in both development and production has helped me today in working for Wrigley, which Wrigley obviously is a brand, which we're seeing now today. A lot of brands are becoming production companies and creating their own content and selling to studios and networks.
Thank you so much.
I love that. I love that. You said you were a development executive?
Yeah.
See, doing super well. She mentioned she was in New York, had $500 in her pocket, went to LA. Well, listen, I still got $500 in my pocket. I'm gonna get there. Nah, but on the real, I work for Common Justice as an outreach manager, and Common Justice is an alternative to incarceration program and victim services program rooted in restorative justice. We operate in Brooklyn, Bronx, and Manhattan. And we are the first organization of its kind to focus on serious violence in adult courts. And my main job is working with defense attorneys, working with the district attorney's office in Brooklyn, working with judges, folks who are responsible for having committed violence and folks who have experienced that violence. Seeing if we're all on the same page in terms of diverting a case from incarceration to our restorative justice program. So my main day-to-day operations entail just ensuring the flow of cases into our program to try to reduce the scale of mass incarceration and address the question of violence. How did I get here? I like to think of where I'm at as less a kind of career trajectory and more of just like a broader calling manifesting in different ways at different points in my life. And my calling is really that of social justice, racial justice, with a specific focus on issues in our criminal legal system. I kind of refined that focus while I was an undergrad here, take advantage of different summer opportunities, had a couple Emerson Research Fellowships. I don't know if they still offer those grants. Yeah, take advantage of that. It was a great way to spend 2 of my summers, one of which was more an academic approach to the question of criminal justice change. I was working with now retired Professor Rick Warner, examining the Black Lives Matter movement from the vantage point of anarchist philosophy, the question of the role of the state. The next summer I got funding from the Levitt Center to work with the National Lawyers Guild, which is a progressive organization focused on protecting the right to dissent among leftist and progressive organizers. I spent a summer in Cleveland. That was during the Republican National Convention, in which Trump was running for president for the first time. And I was there with the legal team providing resources to help folks who were on the ground to protest, to dissent, to say that everything that Trump represents, we don't want. And every time you have people rise up in mass demonstrations, there's a lot of attempts to silence their voices and use the strong arm of the state to restrict their capacity to speak up. So my summer with the National Lawyers Guild was an opportunity to, see how legal resources could be mustered in defense of the right to free speech for causes that I care about. The next year, I got another Emerson grant to work on a short film project on the impact of mass incarceration on families. So I spent the whole summer in Utica, where I'm from, born and raised, talking to folks who have had loved ones, brothers, sons, boyfriends, girlfriends, cousins locked up, and just better understanding their experience of mass incarceration from the vantage point of having someone behind bars. And so gradually, I started to zero in my focus on social justice and racial justice around questions of the law and criminal justice. As a senior in the philosophy department, I got the opportunity under the guidance of Professor Franklin to work on a rap EP, a 4-song rap EP that was on the question of hope in relationship to anti-Black racism. What does it mean to be hopeful and to sustain a sense of hopefulness and agency in the face of anti-Black racism, as reinforced by institutions like our criminal legal system. I was lucky enough after my senior year to get a Watson Fellowship. I know some folks are interested. I spoke to someone who is a finalist now. Best of luck to you. It was a transformative year. I looked at skateboarding as a tool for social change in Germany, Brazil, South Africa, Mozambique, and Greece. I loved it. Highlight of my life. I know I have many more years to come, but Watson was, still a bar I'm trying to rise up to again. But it was tremendous, and I came back from that year, one, still passionate about social justice and criminal legal change, and also I was on my feet all year. I did not want to be in an office, in a legal office, just putting pen to paper. So I looked for opportunities to work in the criminal legal space from an angle that I thought was justifiable, from defense, namely, not prosecutorial work, although, there might be, some folks might be interested in that direction. We could have a conversation about that too. And there was an opportunity to work as an investigator in a public defender's office. So I did that for 2 years, and then was lucky enough with the support of Breland, Professor Franklin, Jenny in the back, Mrs. Davis, of course, to get funding to study for graduate school in the UK. And I got a master's degree in political theory, where I focused my research on the 19th century emergence of the American penitentiary system. And then another master's in criminology, where I researched gun violence in Utica. And it was my year abroad was an opportunity for me to reflect on how precisely practically we could change our criminal legal system. And so it was a time to step back and think more critically about what change is possible, what change is desirable, what are current efforts being done to try to translate desire for change into practice. And in thinking about that question and asking folks who are in this space trying to push for changes in our criminal legal system, I came across the wonderful work of Common Justice. And it turns out that the director also studied in England on a similar scholarship, and she was also connected to my past organization. So I talked to my last boss, and I was like, hey, I know you have a relationship with this person at this organization. Can you connect us? She connected us, had coffee when I was back in the States on a break with the director of Common Justice. She told me more about the job, and It sounded like the type of work I wanted to do. What we're about is building a viable alternative so that folks are not sitting and languishing in prison, which, as we know, doesn't increase public safety. It tends to do the opposite. And we do that by addressing the very thorny question of violence. And she told me they're expanding. They were initially just in Brooklyn, now they're in the Bronx and Manhattan, and we have a whole replication team working with folks in other jurisdictions around the country to see if they could adopt a similar approach to the question of violence. And she told me that, look out for opportunities and stay in touch, and that's what I did. And lo and behold, there was an opportunity to help expand their reach and work on getting cases into their Brooklyn office, and that's what I'm doing now. So.
Something to add to this, I feel like there's a running theme between all of us that we should highlight is like closed mouths don't get fed. And it's really about asking questions and networking. Because if you listen to every single one of us, like weren't sure and you were like, oh, let me figure it out. I'll ask and I'll see. And then you're like, oh wait, I do like this. Because I feel like a lot of people kept asking me, how do you know what you want to do when you graduate from here? And it's okay if you don't. But it's really about asking and talking to people and keeping your LinkedIn up to date. Whether you have nothing on there, but at least have a presence. But go ahead.
Yeah, thank you so much for sharing about your career journey. I think another thing that was very present was besides asking was looking for resources that were necessary to get to the position that you're in. So we're gonna tie it, of course, back to Hamilton and ask you, how did your time at Hamilton help lead you to your, not this one, but what resources like conferences, associations, or networking events have you found most valuable for professional development in your field?
Let's see, when I was at Hamilton, I was part of the BLSU, the Black and Latino Student Union. I was a part of the Brothers Organization. I'm sure there was more. I mean, I was an RA, which is now a CA, but I don't think that was really professional. It was a different form of professional development, I'll say. It forced you to become more confrontational, and if you weren't a naturally confrontational person, you had no choice. For better or worse, but for me, for professional development, I think the Black and Latino Student Union was an amazing organization for me. There was a conference that was held at Yale called the Black Solidarity Conference, and the first time we ever went was my junior year, and then we went again my senior year, or sophomore, junior. No, it was junior and senior. And
Sophomore, junior.
Oh, dang! All right, it was sophomore, junior. All right, dang, yeah. This is Marquis. Why am I introducing him? We went together. We went together, and it was an amazing experience of just. It was Black student unions and both BLSUs from schools all over the country convening at Yale University to just have a weekend where we could get poured into. And that was the first time I had experienced a conference where I was conference period. And then it was the first time when I started reflecting that was the first conference I ever went to get poured into, not knowing that was something I actually needed until I received it. And so being in an environment where everyone looked like you, where some people shared your common struggles, some people had a different view on your struggle and saw it as an opportunity, and it put a lot of things in perspective, where I came back to Hamilton fully recharged, and it was a whole 4 days of just being out, talking to people. What would normally be draining was very refreshing and restorative for me. And so that was something that I longed for and looked for opportunities like that in law school. And of course there was the Black Law Students Association, also known as BALSA, part of a national Black Law Students Association called NABALSA. And I made sure that was the first group I joined when I got to law school. And again, they had annual conferences that again would pour into you. And that wasn't lost on me, so I didn't just try, I got into leadership within the National Black Law Students Association. I was there when I was a law student. Now as an alum of a law school, I serve on the advisory board for the National Black Law Students Association. And I still go to those conferences, and I still get poured into even as a practicing attorney. And then in my professional career, one thing that I will do is I'm going to find people that look like me. And I'm going to find organizations that provide that opportunity to be poured into. And so actually 2 weeks ago, I was in Birmingham, Alabama for the National Black Professional Lobbying Association. And that was the first time where I wasn't the handful of lobbyists in a room that looked like me. There were over 300 of us. And some of them were some of the most accomplished folks in the space, period. Not for Black people, not for people in a certain region, period. That they were just some of the most. One was Apple's first ever lobbyist that they ever hired is a Black man out of Georgia. And he looked at me and said, I don't know why. He was like, I gave up. He was like, I'm really tired of like doing this to myself, but I'm going to take you under my wing and I'm going to be a mentor for you. And I was like, wow, I wasn't even asking, but I'll take it, And so for me, finding conferences that pour into you has proven exponentially beneficial to my own personal growth, understanding what my value is, reevaluating how I value myself in certain institutions and in society and how I see myself, and also how I portray that moving forward. So I would say that those are some of the organizations that I took part in and currently partake in. And it's just been a blessing. And being able to look forward to that year after year, no matter where I go, if I stay at my company, if I go to a different company, those are associations and organizations. And again, back to community that was formulated here with the OP, that's a community that I know I will always be a part of and I will always be able to find no matter where I am.
I was like, I would do something that is happening outside in the world is BSUs coming together. And I was like, is the BSU still here? And I would say, go find other colleges and have one big party and get to meet people in other colleges. So the fact that there is something here, you guys should connect. We'll talk later about joining those. But for me in Hamilton, I was part of BSU. That was really big for me. I was part of the social chair. I created the first fashion show that they had here. It was a charity fashion show where I had J-Lo, Beyonce had her first clothing line. I called them up and I got them to donate clothes. And we had it in the auditorium, I forgot the name of it. And we built out a stage and we had everyone from other organizations walk it and donate clothing, and I produced that. Not knowing that I wanted to be a producer, but that also helped me decide I like the production, I like the events. I was also part of the radio station here that helped me with a voice. I didn't know what we were talking about. We talked during lunch. My friends used to sit in the diner and listen to us. It was me and my friend Nani at the time. And we talked about anything, Nani and Christina, and we talked about anything for 30 minutes. And that was fun and giving us a voice in a way of just talking girl talk. That's pretty much what it was. And we had a good timing at lunch because everyone's sitting there listening. What else did I do? I did that. I was part of the first cheerleading squad here at Hamilton. Hamilton wasn't really keen about having a cheerleading squad, but we had my RA at the time was like, I'm going to start it. And I was like, okay, I'll join it. And it was fun. It was an experience. It was cold. I remember that much. It was cold during these lacrosse games. But we had a good time, and it also gave me another sense of community. There's other organizations that I joined and I tried, and I feel that, and I also tried studying abroad. I went to study abroad. I went to Royal Holloway for London for my junior year. And I would say each of those experiences here at Hamilton has helped shape me today. Like what I say of Hamilton exposes you to people from all different parts of the world. And that's important when you graduate from here, because when you're leaving your community of living in Brooklyn, you know these people, you know how they talk, you know how they act. But when you go into an office, you're like, wait, where you come from? How do you speak? Or how can I communicate with you that's not the same as my neighbor? And Hamilton gives you that stepping stone. So me being in BSU, working with other organizations, talking to bigger organizations and asking them to donate clothing, I was like, I don't know if they're gonna do it, but they did. And they quickly just gave us free clothes to work in our fashion show. Or just talking on the radio and having what do people wanna talk about? Let's call in, what are the issues that you have today? And then also studying abroad helped me learn and talk to people in other countries. Because as I learned in producing today, if I was shooting in Italy doesn't really care about television as much as we do. They were like, in order to me coming up to somebody and be like, hey, can you sign this contract that basically says I could shoot here for 5 days and you have to shut down and here's your little bit of money, you have to sit with them and talk and have coffee and build a sense of community with them. Their type of language and talking to them is a little bit different than America that's quickly like, oh, we'll just sign any contract. They're like, no, I don't know who you are, I don't know where you come from. And I feel like it's important to learn that everybody in different countries communicate differently and they do business differently. Some places don't do contracts, it's a handshake. And I feel like going to other countries and living in Europe for a little bit and hopping around helped expose me to other cultures and help me today. So I feel like when I tell students today, take advantage of everything, even if you're unsure. I did that my first semester here. I'm gonna circle back. My first semester here, I took astronomy and archaeology, and it was both big labs. And Ms. Freeland looked at me and was like, what is wrong with you? She's like, I told you to try everything, but not 2 labs your first semester. And I didn't realize how hard it was, but it was hard. But I was literally, I say do this, don't do the same. I say try different things one step at a time. Something you may not be exposed to. I was never exposed to archaeology. I thought it was just digging bones and then discovering some gold. And it's so much more than that. In astronomy, I thought it was just looking at the stars, but there's actually maps and constellations and all these things. And you have access to all these crazy classes that you wouldn't have to at home. So why not try them here? Because it may direct you to a path you may never thought you were actually interested in. So don't be scared to like try different things and working with different organizations. And then working with other organizations at other schools, because you'll realize you're not the only one that's scared or hurt or being like, am I the only one feeling this way? Because trust me, people at Syracuse, people at Utica, people at Colgate, BSUs are feeling the exact same way, or the other organizations are feeling the exact same way too, because upstate New York is a different world. But again, you come here, you bring something, so you're here for a reason. Don't feel like you're here because you're like, oh, I just have to come here. No, you're giving Hamilton much more than what they're giving you.
My student loans beg to differ.
Oh, wow. That's another story. We can talk about that.
I'm kidding. Oh, man. I feel like y'all dropping all the gems, and I'm left here afterward trying to figure out, all right, what can I say? I definitely want to double down on like the fact that Hamilton has so much resources, and look at those resources as opportunities to experiment, try different things. You know, I mentioned the Emerson grant that helped me just study with the professor for a summer. Another one that helped me do a video project for a summer. Another that helped me do an internship that had me living in the city but traveling to Cleveland and also to Philly, working with different working with a legal organization. Take advantage of the plentiful resources that exist here. They exist for you. When you leave, they will not be at your disposal anymore. The people will. The people will always be there to support you, but the resources won't be as easily accessible. So take advantage. I missed that. And yeah, implied in what I said there is experimentation. Like view this 4 years or however many years you have left here or months as an opportunity to just try new things. You know, we are young, you all are younger than I, but we're young people. You know, there's so much different opportunities you could pursue, so many trajectories you might embark on. If you're not sure, that's okay. Use that uncertainty as a moment to just try this out. If it ain't feeling right, if it ain't for you, try the next thing out. Try the next thing out. One of the virtues of being here and having so many resources around you is that it enables you to just try different things and figure it out. Embrace that. And one core thing I got from the fact that there was so much resources here and so many opportunities to try new things is it made me incredibly flexible. You know, flexible to new circumstances, flexible to new people, you know, and new contexts. So use all that's around you as an opportunity to try new things and to just deepen your capacity to be flexible in new situations. What you have here is so precious. I'm grateful for the folks in this room, I know Professor Dampton just entered. I see you. He is also a core part of my success here. I appreciate all these people for helping me recognize and take advantage of the various resources and opportunities that exist here. I can't help but feeling like there's so much more I could have done. So recognize that and embrace all those things that are around you, because it's a lot.
Thank you so much for sharing your advice. The next question kind of ties into this, and it would be our last question before opening up the floor to questions from students who are here. And it is, do you have any advice for OP Hamilton students who are seeking to enter a similar position as yours?
You want to go first, Marquis?
Yeah, sure. Thank you for this opportunity. I'll say, I guess on the similar rift, like, because Hamilton has so many resources and Utica is not far away and Utica does not have as many resources, and I'm from there, I was trying to look for opportunities to be a bridge for those resources. That's part of what I was doing with the video project that I got the Emerson grant to fund, is like buy a camera, buy resources so I can go and talk to folks and highlight their voices and use the resources that Hamilton has to empower folks in my community to use their voices and give light on an issue that we need to be attentive to and responsive to. And I think opportunities like that to engage in public service, again, I hesitate to speak in like a super career-orientated way, but those are things I could put on my resume. But more importantly, those are things that challenge me to, again, like see a new context and see how can I do for others in this specific space. That was really important for putting me here. Again, like, as folks have already said, asking folks, hey, you work here, what does that look like? Is there an opportunity for me to step into that space at some point? There are a few situations in which it's bad to ask folks if there's an opportunity. The worst you're gonna get is no, and okay, on to the next person or the next opportunity. So I think just leaning into asking folks and trying to knock on different doors that seem closed, but you knock and someone's like, come on in. That was really crucial for me, I guess, finding the answers that made sense from my life and ending up working in this space. It was a very broad, kind of general reflection, but I'm happy to get more specific in the Q&A.
Yeah, please do.
Advice. You have to hustle in this industry. Like kind of like I said, it's one of those, I moved there for $500. PA doesn't really pay that much. I worked in 2 clothing stores. Sometimes I bartended. I hustled to stay in LA. LA was a big transition coming from New York. Coming here, from New York to here was like, okay, this is a lot. Then I went to Syracuse, this is a lot. Now going to LA, it's sunny all the time and everyone's happy. I don't get it. And it was just like, this is another transition, but I kept reminding myself, why am I here? I'm here because I want to be here. This is the time, at the time, it was the only place New York didn't have that much opportunity. And it's really about, like I said, I emailed 100 people, 20 people responded. You can't look at it like the person said no, as this is the end all be all. It's like, that's just not the right person. There's somebody who's gonna say yes. So you're gonna have to keep reminding yourself, why did I start? Why did I begin? What is my reasoning for doing this? And that'll keep pushing you through. Also, another thing is about finding community. Finding a source of friends. It's like when you first start networking, it's not about, if you're a PA is a production assistant, it's not about like, oh, I gotta network with the president of the company. It's cool to know them, but they won't be the president by the time you work your way up. It's really about networking with people around you and really building that sense of community, because when you're broke and you're eating ramen and you're like, what the heck am I doing here? When all your friends are working finance jobs and making multi-million dollars, you have to say, why did I start this? Oh, I love creating television. I love doing this. And those same friends will come and grow up with you. And one of them is Carlene. Carlene is a producer.
I'm not here.
But Carlene is one of those people that we were broke and struggling, but we won our first Emmy together. And each other in times like this, and it's like that's important because there's not going to be all the glitz and glam that you see on television. There's going to be 12-hour days. There's going to be long nights. You're going to be traveling the world on different time zones, and you're just going to have to be like, oh, this is my friend. We're in this together. And I feel like keeping your LinkedIn updated, networking, talking to different people. There is a time and place to asking when for a job. But it's really about following it with people. Don't follow up with them every 2 weeks and be like, hey, this is happening to me. I say once a quarter is a good time just to update you and keep them fresh keep you fresh on their minds. But also save your money because this industry, as you can see the past year, is kind of crazy. Save your money. Always have an emergency account. Have a backup plan because there's sometimes where you're like, oh, wait, how do I balance work and real life bills? And if you have 6 months saved up or you're even negotiating your next rate, you don't have to take a low rate because you're like, that's not worth my time. I'm good with where I am right now. So it's about talking to people, finding mentors who don't look like you and do look like you because you want both sides of the spectrum and understanding experiences and also just networking with everybody around you. Every job I got because someone referred me. Or LinkedIn is great. I enjoy it. I love it. I apply through there. And our industry is a little hard. It's really about who you know. So it's really about networking constantly. And I tell people that with my company called Sheets of Cocktails. I tell the women all the time, network, network, network. Talk to people. Because especially if you're the only woman at the table, you bring something to the table. And you're talking about something and you're bringing a different perspective. But then you're networking with them and they'll help you with your next job. So it's about networking. It's about being a hustler. And then also understanding why your perspective is different and what you're bringing to the table in this industry. Because sometimes you are the only one there too, as a woman or a person of color, but you're there for a reason, and you have to remember why you have a seat at the table.
I would say one thing that's important is relationships for sure. And I would say that as you build those relationships, there is a way to think about it, a way that I think about it that makes it a little bit easier to navigate the various kinds of folks I meet. And for me, it was to recognize that my own journey in life, I'm the main character, and I've lived a very complex life. But every person I meet is the main character in their own life, in their own story. And their life is just as complex as mine. And in this role, where I'm traveling the country, meeting folks on either side of the aisle, advocating for clients and things of that sort, you have to navigate this world with, not naively, but you have to navigate this world offering some sort of grace to people and respect to their own journey, the complexities in their own life. And I think that allows me to build bridges with people. I'm not even gonna lie, I didn't think I ever would need to, ever would want to build a bridge with, but have. And I'm just being honest, like, I'm not gonna lie, there's some folks, when I was a student, I was like, man, I'll be damned if I'm caught on camera talking to them, right? And these are folks now where I'm like, man, I'm glad I got out of my comfort zone. I am so glad I got out of my comfort zone. And like, these are some people that I do consider friends now. And I'm like, what changed? And it was life. Life came. You got to see various aspects of just like fear during COVID. I'm not gonna lie, it was COVID that really humanized my understanding of my life, the way that people live their life, and trying to really, truly understand that, dang, at the end of this, we're all people living our lives trying to be the best we can and make the most of that, right? And so, if I was, I guess, like, I'm probably gonna change it up a little bit. If I knew then what I know now about that, and if I had that approach, oh my gosh, I would love this. I would love college. I would love to go back. I would do everything that they mentioned. I would try new things. I would meet as many people as I can, and I would say even take the mindset that I have now about the complexities of individual lives and see networking as trying to learn a tiny portion of someone's story, whatever they're willing to share with you over time. I would use that as my guiding definition of networking. Not networking for a particular end. You can have a particular end in mind, but I do think that getting to know someone's story is the most authentic form of building a connection that will open so many doors that you didn't even know could ever even exist. And then lastly, I would say that, keep that LinkedIn fresh. Keep the LinkedIn fresh, but also ask people the way that you did when you emailed 100 people and said, I'm not asking for a job, I just want to know what you do. That's a portion of one's story that many people will be eager to share, because when you're in a publicly facing role or where you're advocating for someone or working for something bigger than yourself, you very rarely get the opportunity to share your story on the daily. And so when you meet somebody that has an interest in learning even a tiny portion of your journey, of your story, you're eager to share that. So definitely lean in on that. And then additionally, for at least my career path, you gotta go to law school. But it's okay to sit in the unknown. It's okay to be scared. I'm not gonna lie, there are times where I get hit with a project and I literally sit in my office, close the door, and I'm like, for a couple minutes, I'm sitting there, I'm like I'm nervous, I'm scared. But there's some solace that comes through the unknown and putting yourself in uncomfortable situations. But knowing again, and it always goes back to the sense of community. When you have that community, you can be scared, you can not know what's coming out the other side, but you know that you will be supported. And I think that's if I knew then what I know now, it would be to continue to lean on this concept of community.
Thank you so much to our panelists for their thoughtful answers and responses. We have now reached 10 minutes or so where we're opening up the floor for students to ask any questions they would like. Go ahead, Edwin.
Hi, I'm Edwin. I'm a junior and a sociology major studying. Thank you guys for coming here tonight. And I just want to ask a few questions. Maybe I should get them too. For starters, you all have mentioned something about embracing the uncertain. What were some of the sayings that you guys had that helped you embrace the unknown, or what were some of the pieces of advice that helped you understand and comprehend that the unknown is nothing to be afraid about? Second of all, how do I know I'm making the most out of all the resources, not only at Hamilton, but within OP? Is there some gauge that lets me know that, I'm completely using everything to its fullest extent, or is it something that I have to dictate over time?
Let's take the lead on that. No, she was ready.
Thank you for your questions. Let me think. To answer your first question about things that help you walk into fear, I feel that I shared this earlier, that every door that closed led me to something else. There is no right or wrong path, especially in this entertainment industry, on how to get to the top. There were times when I had an opportunity and I thought I got this job and I didn't. And it closed the door, but it led me to a better opportunity that I may not see then, but I saw it later down the road in my path. So I feel like every experience, whether it's good or bad, it teaches you something. So when it's hard to make a decision, it's really about you weighing your pros and cons and say, what am I learning from this? What am I gaining from this? Is it helping me teach me? Is it going to help me grow? And then be like, okay, let's take the risk. There are times when I took a job that gave me a lower rate, it was a lower title, just because I didn't have that experience on that type of show genre. And that helped me diversify my resume for later, and now I could create television shows. Talk shows. For instance, I took a position at Red Table Talk as associate producer when I was a field producer, which is 2 steps higher. And I was like, I really don't want to be here, but they didn't have my position there. But I went there and I learned the process of talk shows. And that helps me today, and now I'm developing talk shows. It's one of those things of, what am I getting when I'm scared? And it's like, there's nothing wrong with taking 2 steps back to get 5 steps ahead. So don't feel like you're like going backwards. It's really more about investing in yourself and seeing what you're learning. And then what was your second question in terms of the opportunities in Hamilton?
Yeah, how do I know I'm making the most out of them?
I mean, I don't know if you will. I mean, I feel like your path is your path. Like, you may take on certain things where another person in the opportunity program may take on others. I feel like you should talk to the guidance counselors there and really talk to them and say, this is what I'm interested in. What should I do? Where should I go? What other programs are there? And see what resources they have. One thing that really helped me was the Career Center here as well. Like, I went there and I sat and I went through this big book, which I'm sure is a computer now. It's aging myself. But I went down the list and then I was just like, okay, let me lower these things out. And then I went to the Opportunity Center and I said, hey, I'm interested in entertainment. Who are the alums that worked in that field? And I feel like it's really about communication and really vocalizing what you're looking for. And then in terms of Hamilton overall, go to the website, see what they're selling. And then you'll be like, oh, I don't know what this organization was here. Let me go and find the person who's head of that and see if I could join their organization and try it for a couple of days and whatnot.
Okay, if I could jump in for the first part of the question, I think part of developing the capacity to embrace certainty without fear as an obstacle. Fear is always going to exist there. Not always, but often is going to exist there. But being stopped by it is the problem, not the fact that it exists. But recognizing that, life is fundamentally unpredictable and that you got where you are now required you to step into uncertainty already. So just recognizing the various moments in your life where the path forward was uncertain and you stepped into it and you're here now. Asking brilliant questions, to panelists, the folks who go on that trajectory themselves. So I think just looking at your own life and seeing where you've done that is I think something that could be useful. To the second part of your question, I think as Toni indicated, it is person by person, and it depends on your specific capacity, your specific interests. Like, for example, I look at my Hamilton experience and I'm like, I'm now going hiking a lot and stuff. I wish I would have taken advantage of all the opportunities to do that. What is that little house over there with the canoes? What's it called? Yeah, I wish I was over there more and taking advantage of those trips. But when I look at my time at Hamilton, had I had that on my plate, something else would have had to go. And I'm happy that I had what I had on my plate. So I wouldn't have put that on. But just, engaging in that kind of calculation on your own, determining what you have on your plate now. Can you fit this next thing? If you can't, can you let something go? If you can't, then maybe you just got to say no to that next thing. So, I know it's always unsatisfying to say it's subjective. It depends case by case, but this is a situation in which it does. So I just encourage you to reflect on what space, how much space you have, what you can hold, what you want to do and explore, and what you're willing to give to that.
Yeah, and I would even say to that second question about resources, talk to as many folks as you can, alums and current students, because there are things that, I'll tell you right now, like, I should have used a Career Center way more than I did. I feel like I only used them my senior year when I was looking for a job, and then I was like, wait, I'm going to law school, I don't need this anymore, right? But that was my mindset at the time. And instead of looking at, okay, go in there as a first year saying, listen, I have a broad range of interests. Do you have any recommendations? There are resources that folks who work, students who work in the Career Center may not even fully know everything about. And that's just the reality of just an institution that is innovative. There will always be new resources that come down the pike that I will never fully know the full breadth of all the resources, but I know one untapped one. For me, when I was a student, when I was a freshman, I didn't really tap into the alumni network. I didn't know how. It seemed daunting. You look in and you see all these alums and you see they all have Wikipedia pages and they're all very highly successful and it seems like they're on a pedestal, but they're at the love that people have for this school is deep. It runs so deep to the point where a first year can reach out to me and I could be on a flight, going to a conference or going to speak at something, and I will pay for Wi-Fi in the air to respond. Like, it's that serious. And I think that's a resource that I think I'm still learning how powerful this network truly is. I still to this day am. And that's a resource that I don't know if I will ever know the full breadth of the Hamilton resources, at least outside of the school. But I know that if you ask me, you know, what I wish I would have tapped into when I was here, I probably would have gotten a little bit more outside of my comfort zone. I would have taken a math class. I mean, the open curriculum was great. I was like, oh, I don't gotta take math. This is great. I probably would have taken a math course. I probably would have tried a foreign language. I probably would have, you know, utilized the QSR Center more and like tried more things in terms of if there's a metric. I think it's to repeat Marquis, it's kind of case by case. It's about you. But I would say for your first question, I am a man of faith. So I always stood on this principle that, you know, everything is a part of God's plan for me, and He'll never steer me wrong. And so whenever I entered into a place where I was extremely nervous, extremely scared, my first thing was, I'd be like, oh man, God's got me. And that was truly enough to even lessen that amount of fear, to take it from something that was paralyzing to making me act with faith and act moving forward, knowing that He's not gonna let me fail. And it's never a win or a loss, it's a win and or learn. And the L never stands for loss, it stands for learn.
Yeah.
Or loans.
We have time for at least one more question if anybody else wants to ask anything.
This abstract Hamilton connection, like, we feel good when we can help people, you know, like, it feels good to be able to extend a hand and help you find your way. So just thinking about it in that way, I hope helps make reaching out a little bit easier. We like it, you know, we feel good about ourselves. So do reach out if you ever have questions or are interested in the organizations we're with or the routes we took or tried to take but it didn't work out. I'm here, I'm a resource.
And whether it was us or anyone else, if people don't respond, don't get scared. Like, people are busy. Follow up in 2 weeks and be like, hey, just following up. Like, don't feel like distracted. Be like, oh my God, they ignored me. Trust me, like, I get 1 million emails a day. I've red flag it and I probably will circle back in a week if I don't answer right then and there. But if you follow up and say, hey, just following up and seeing if you were available for a quick chat, I most likely will respond.
Yeah, and I know that everyone has to register for classes soon.
Oh.
I know that's like next week. I will say this, one easy way to practice getting outside of your comfort zone, you don't have to sacrifice an academic credit. I would say try new things through PE. I tried golf.
Oh.
I did not ever think that I'd be out here like, dang, I gotta go play golf today. Play it.
It's a good conversation business.
I mean, it's a good one. Even tennis, pickleball, I think that's a thing now. Like, I would have done everything. Now, if I want to play golf, I gotta pay. If I want to play tennis, I gotta pay. It's winter, I gotta pay double because it's now in a bubble. Like, that's crazy. This place is really at your disposal. If you've never tried something, look at the PE course and you'll be amazed at what you see.
Do you still swim here? Do we have to still swim?
Oh wait, do they? It's not a requirement anymore.
Hamilton threw me in the water when I first got here, and as a black girl in the water, I will say if you don't know how to swim, learn how to swim while you're here. I will say that. That's a good thing. It's a life lesson. I learned how to swim here during the summer, and it was a rewarding experience. Like, I'm actually going back to get swimming lessons again to brush up on my strokes.
No, seriously. And then also, like, I would say this, like, meet as many people as you can.
Yeah.
Meet as many people as you can. Listen, you might even end up on a yacht. Who knows, right? I'm just saying. Yeah, a yacht or a vacation home. I'm just saying. I wish I would have did that more.
And if you fall off the yacht, you can swim because you took a class.
Exactly.
I mean, I'm not jumping off a yacht. That's fine.
So we have reached the end of our panel. Thank you everyone for coming and for being engaged in this conversation. Thank you Toni, Caleb, and Marquis for your time. We appreciate having the opportunity to get to know you more and learn more about your field of work. Have a good rest of your night, everyone. And once again, thank you for joining us today.
Thank you.
This was great. Really had a good time.
I also wanted to second the thank you for coming. Obviously, this has been a fantastic panel, and I'm really appreciative of your time, of coming up here and spending some time. Some of you came earlier, met some of our sophomores, and are here obviously tonight. And some of you are doing a podcast, so listen to OP on the mic because Tony's going to do it tomorrow. But we also wanted to give you something. You said you wanted a sweatshirt. Well, we don't have a Hamilton sweatshirt, but we have an OP sweatshirt that we're going to give you.
I'll take all the free clothing.
One less thing I have to buy, right?
Where am I set?
So
It's branding.
there's
Thank you so
OP
much.
sweatshirt and an OP blanket.
Oh my
So
God.
you can't forget us.
Oh,
But
thank you.
thank you very